Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for joining our 10th episode of Founders Diary, or the 10 already. So, a bit about Founders Diary, why we do this. We understand that building a company can be a lonely journey. While there are definitely joys of entrepreneurship, there are also significant challenges. In our Founders Diary series, we ask founders about what their days look like and reflect on what they discovered during the process. So today I'm gonna moderate this with my twin brother Ardi Setiadharma. We founded Prasetia Dwidharma back in 2008, and since 2013 we started investment in many tech startups in Indonesia, Singapore, US, India, China. So today we want to talk about do and don'ts in the fast changing business environment for SaaS business. So today we have two amazing speakers. First one is Brandon Rakphongphairoj. Until now, I cannot spell your last name. Sorry, man. Founder and CEO of Qontak. Qontak is a social CRM technology firm providing intuitive growth solutions. We provide sales and customer service CRM systems, KPI and task management solutions, HR live GPS tracking technology, along with WhatsApp chat and call center integration. Qontak is an official WhatsApp business API partner. Welcome, Brandon. And second speaker, Daniel Hazman, founder and CEO of Nimbly Technologies. Nimbly is a mobile solution that transforms manual checklists into instant insights by enabling frontline workers to implement standard operating procedures and automate workflows in a simpler way. We help organizations improve their efficiency and generate cost savings by providing management with data-driven insights from field or store operations remotely and in real time. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Brandon and Daniel to introduce about yourself and maybe explain about your company. And if you have like a small presentation or small video, welcome to play it as well. So, Brandon.
Yes. Can you hear me actually?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So how would you like to sort of carry this off? Do you want me to sort of present the entirety or just introduce myself and then I'll let Daniel introduce himself?
Introduce about yourself first and then maybe just a bit about what Qontak does. And if you have like a small short video, welcome to do it.
Okay. So thank you everyone for making the time to sort of obviously listen to Daniel and I and to sort of collaborate and just get all of our minds together. So from Qontak, we are a social CRM as Arya has stated, and we focus on social CRM technologies. So essentially what we've been trying to do is to bridge a lot of the interactions that sales and customer service agents perform throughout the day and monitor those activities. And by doing so, what we enable businesses is essentially to improve their productivity and essentially automate a lot of those processes at the same time, so that a lot of the mundane tasks involved in terms of adding in leads or sort of capturing conversations or sort of adding in tickets, all of that is sort of automated. And that is what Qontak does. For myself personally, I founded Qontak in middle of 2016. Shortly thereafter, we pivoted a year in. We were initially doing data crowdsourcing to start what now everyone knows as Qontak as a social CRM. Before that, I had started a meat distribution business, primarily doing frozen meat distribution and sort of processed meats, which my wife now handles. And before that, I was doing investment consulting at a firm called Cambridge Associates, and I helped out a lot of pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, universities. So some of the clients that I sort of handled were the China Investment Corporation, Hong Kong Jockey Club, Khazanah, and I sort of just helped them with their asset allocation and their portfolio management. And then and yeah, so that sort of gives a brief background about myself. And later on, in this talk, I'll also sort of talk about sort of some of the experiences and some of the learnings, and hopefully you all can benefit from that. So at this point in time, I'll pass this over to Daniel, and I'll let Daniel sort of introduce himself.
Hey, thanks, Brandon, and thank you, Arya, for having me here. Just a little bit of background on myself. I actually spent many years in retail at Walmart, a bit of jack of all trades, because I also did fast-moving consumer goods in General Mills, and have spent some time building out country offices in Indonesia for President Clinton, as well as for a Dutch investment firm focusing on agriculture supply chains particularly. And the past, gosh, now it's already 5 years. Incredible. I decided after setting up country offices and operations for other people, I thought, well, maybe I could do it on my own and start something for myself. So I did that. After a couple of pivots, we originally started with a gamification platform to engage university students to recycle more. And then that pivoted to a gamification platform to engage employees of companies and organizations. And then 2 years ago, it pivoted to Nimbly, where we are today. And instead of telling you a little bit more about Nimbly, I'm just going to show you a brief explainer video for 1 minute. If that's okay?
Sure.
I'm going to do that now. The technology works here. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome.
Every business aspires to grow and expand, but running operations in multiple locations can be challenging. Managing people, quality, and consistency is no easy task. To remain competitive in the digital era, companies need to adapt and use data to execute their strategies successfully. Handling operations the same old manual way won't be enough. Don't worry, Nimbly is here to help manage your operations, anytime, anywhere. Nimbly is a mobile solution that digitizes your manual checklists and turns them into real-time insights. With Nimbly, you can verify visitations and issues as they happen through geolocation and live photos and videos. Discover issues and monitor follow-ups until they're resolved. No internet connection? Nimbly works offline and online, so you'll never miss critical information. Have access to data-driven insight and see what's happening in your company in real time. You don't have to be tech-savvy to use Nimbly. It's easy and friendly to use. Many industries are already using Nimbly to manage their operations. Retail, food and beverage, FMCG, agriculture, and many more. They've all saved time and money from using Nimbly, and so can you. Experience the success your business deserves. Ask for a demo and see how Nimbly can streamline your operations.
Okay. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Sorry about that. So that's a little bit about Nimbly. And in the past couple of years, we've been able to sign up more than 100 clients. Some of them you probably know very well, like Kopi Kenangan, KFC, Chatime, Under Armour, Cargill, Wilmar, and 7-Eleven.
So let's jump to the questions that we already prepared. So before we start the questions, if any of the audience want to ask any question, you can type up your question on the chat on the left bottom corner. So the first question, what do you think about the SaaS market for Indonesia right now? You can take into account with the COVID and everything. Let's start with Daniel.
Okay. So I think even in the marketing promos there that you guys sent, there's a BCG research, right, that's shown that actually SaaS in Indonesia is growing by an average of 30-something%, and it will be around $400 million USD by 2023, right? And currently, the spend of companies on SaaS is around 900 million. So it's definitely growing. And the question is, what's driving that growth, right? Now, COVID, you're going to see a little bit of dip, of course, like most industries, but it's going to continue growing. The reason why it's growing is, number one, the familiarity of the model by all the companies here in Indonesia, right? Number two, the ubiquity and the lower prices on smartphones and internet, right? And the third is the number of options, number of companies that are offering more and more services as well, right? So with regards to that familiarity, you have basically the Prasetia community pretty much represents, I would say, most of the B2Bs and the SaaS players that I know, right, here in Indonesia. So they're hearing more and more of Qontak and Qontak and the rest, right? But also the big players globally, from Google to Facebook, I mean the FANG basically, right, are all doing subscriptions too, right? Microsoft can do Teams, et cetera, Slack. So more and more people are becoming more aware, and the options are just becoming a plethora, right? And that's really helped by the fact that internet costs and availability, as well as smartphones, are now lower than ever before, better than ever before, and the penetration is just getting better and better, right? So that's why I say that it's growing and it's going to continue to grow. That said, there's a couple of challenges in that you still have some, as we speak to potential clients, some of the older generations that think still, hey, I don't want to rent, I want to build, or I want to buy, right? I don't want to continue to pay you monthly. Okay, we get it, it's cheap right now, but I just want to own it, right? I think it's hard for them to understand that with software, you need continuous maintenance and enhancements, etc., right? I think that's one of the challenges. The second one is that in Indonesia particularly, and many developing countries, this whole notion of self-service model where you can download it and then you can use it by yourself, it's still fairly difficult, especially for B2B, right? Even if you have really good UI, UX, it's still really difficult because many of the companies here are manja, yeah? So they want people to walk you through, oh, just come over and show me how to use your system and platform, right? So that's the 2 cents I have about that, and I'll turn it over to you guys.
Sorry, I was muted. So about the old mindset, do you still see that often right now, even after COVID?
I think I see it more with this is a generational thing, right? So when I meet with some president directors and the guy, usually it's a guy too, I'm sorry, some cases it's females, but mainly men, you're talking about someone who's 60 years plus, that's where I see it. But it's not necessarily true that older people don't get it. It's just that it's more common to happen with the older generation. And we think that's going to change anyway, because there's a changing of the guard, right? With second generation of family businesses taking over, or third generation.
Do you see that if, let's say, they already have tried to build them before, do you see that it's easier for you to get in?
That's a very good question. And we face that from time to time. So some people, they say, you know what, because we're so big, we'll build it ourselves. This is interesting, etc. So we typically give them a year. They build it, and some of them actually come back to us and say, okay, hey, it didn't work. We failed, right? Let's talk business. And then some have actually built it and failed and came to us because of that failure. But usually if a company has just recently built it or is planning on building it, it's very hard to sway them otherwise until they actually go through that process. Because as I mentioned to you before, especially for big companies, IT departments have so many priorities. You'll have to take a number, right? And then when they get to you, like 6 months later, they start working on the platform, they finish it, and then there's no maintenance plan. I mean, that's basically, okay, we're done. The users start using it and say, hey, can you fix this? Or can you enhance this? They're like, okay, take another number. Okay, we'll get to you in a year. By the time you get back to them, people have already lost motivation, right? And it fails because it's as much the people side. In fact, is more important many times than the technology itself, right?
Yeah. Agree. Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah.
So how about you, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, I think Daniel's response shows a lot of experience in the space. I think that SaaS is obviously, it's becoming a lot more widespread, and like there are a lot of bad things about with COVID affecting the world, but one of the things that I've noticed about SaaS is that in the past, a lot of businesses would sort of want to do face-to-face meetings with you, whereas now, what we've realized, or what businesses have realized, is that they can sort of achieve the same effectiveness by just conducting a meeting on Zoom, or on Kiss Meet, and through that, we're sort of able to shorten the sales cycle immensely and significantly. And I think it's definitely a very, very positive development for Indonesia, and it's not something to be underestimated in terms of what that effect will be in terms of how that will accelerate the adoption of SaaS in Indonesia. The other thing about SaaS is that, I mean, I'm just sort of adding on to Daniel, is that the barriers of entry are very low. That means that anyone, with 2, 3, 4 engineers can start to build SaaS. And so founders that are sort of thinking about SaaS is, well, maybe you might be able to build a product, but how do you sort of build defensible advantages to your business so that, you can not only build that product, but you can scale in the longer run. So that's another thing about SaaS, is there's a lot more SaaS companies out there. And that's just because the barriers of entry are very low, such that businesses want to try to build a lot of the technologies in-house. The other thing about SaaS is that the revenue model in SaaS is subscription based. But what we're also seeing is that subscription, the price of SaaS is coming down. So every year the price of SaaS goes down, to the point where SaaS becomes free, and a lot of businesses like sort of buy SaaS, or they operate on a freemium model. So there's a lot of SaaS in the world that's free. And so a lot of SaaS founders that get into the space need to think about, well, even if I do build all of these different things out here, well, how do I monetize this so that, so that I can start a reasonable, like a good business. And I think that if you talk with VCs out there, like VCs are looking for $1 billion markets plus, right? So that means that if you're gonna start, if BCG says it's a $400 million market, let's just say, then the implications are not good. If you're gonna target a subset of that $400 million market, that means that you might target, let's just say, one particular space in that $400 million market, and that basically means you're screwed, because maybe your market size is $30 million. So even if you get on board conglomerates in Indonesia with big names, it doesn't mean much because the price of SaaS is coming down, etc. So when you think about SaaS, not only do you need to think about what I've noticed about really great software companies is you have to find creative ways to monetize. So we do charge sort of on a subscription basis, but can you also charge on a per X basis? So like some people say like per transaction basis. But what if, let's just say, like you're talking on Zoom per session basis, or if you're doing chat, how many unique people come inbound to that chat? And so when you start to look at all of these different ways where you can add on variable costs, then you start to see, well, SaaS becomes quite interesting because it's sort of like it just sort of steadily grows and grows. And so what I've noticed about SaaS is that, yes, it's challenging, but if you watch a lot of SaaS there, most SaaS founders find greater and greater and greater success. And the success just becomes more and more exponential past the third year. You look at any SaaSter video out there, after 3 years, you start to see that the SaaS founders start to get it, and they start to see exponential effects. So in many ways, this is very counterintuitive to B2C traditional type of investments, which are sort of like, boom, accelerate network effects, is very, very different in SaaS.
I think that's a very good point, having that multiple business model, right? And not just being like just one like monthly recurring revenue, targeting only monthly recurring revenue, but also thinking about how to monetize in different ways. I think that's a good point. So thank you, Ben. So I'll leave it to Ardi for next question.
What are your KPIs, key performance indicators, for measuring the customer's experience, and how have those numbers been trending over the past 6 months, especially starting from the COVID situation, the pandemic? Let's start with Brandon.